Bridget. Okay, then we're going to call the meeting to order at 6:01. Thank you everybody for coming. Review and revisions of agenda. Carolyn.
I would like to add the minutes for October 19, 2021, which I've had a chance to review, and I will move those with some corrections.
Okay, do you want to add that to minutes and correspondence?
Yes.
Okay. And then I think we talked about perhaps letting Mr. PJ speak first because he has a child function to go to.
That would be great if that's okay.
So when do we want to do that?
As soon as possible.
Okay, well then if everybody's okay, if we can allow Mr. PJ to speak first, that would be great.
Super, thanks. Okay, so first, the school board report. The upper grade students are again using the Kiwi kits to provide hands-on experiments to help further development and understanding of next generation science concepts. So far this year, the students have made a drawing tool similar to an Etch-a-Sketch, which none of them knew what it was, and I felt really outdated and old and just foolish to even make the suggestion, but they'd never heard of it, but that's exactly what they made. An air cannon that many of you got to experiment with at back to school night, and explored spinning science with tops they created that had different levels of weights to counterbalance them. These kits are a great way to increase students' level of science, appreciation for experiments, and to gain a deeper understanding of the topics covered. There's a few students in class that are now science crazy because of these kits. Our first progress monitoring of the year was administered this past week to all students. There are both math and language arts progress monitoring assessments to give us an idea of how much growth has occurred since the start of the school year. Resulting from the professional development day that both Sarah and Mr. PJ attended back in October about math instruction and scheduling, some new structures for math block are being experimented with. Things like math menus, math talks, math games, and intervention time can now be used to help structure our math blocks so students have some choice in their learning and are able to meet with the teacher, potentially in a smaller group setting as needed. The Vermont Agency of Transportation has invited Vermont elementary school students to help name the state's 250 giant orange plow trucks. The goal of Vermont Plow Day is to create a fun event that connects the schools, the students, and the AOT employees across the state. The Windham school students came up with several names, which were then narrowed down to the 3 most popular and voted on by all 16 students. The winning name was submitted to the AOT last month, and we did receive word that the name has been chosen and will be used on a plow tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. That orange plow will be arriving here with the name they chose on the side of the plow, as well as the name of our school. The students do not know this is happening, so mum's the word, please, until after 9 a.m. tomorrow. I'm assuming there's no students on Zoom. I hope not. Mr. PJ did notify the press with the hopes of getting some positive news about Windham into the newspaper. We will see if they show up. Grade level meetings were attended by both Mr. PJ and Sarah on October 19th and 20th. These meetings were focused on math instruction, as I already mentioned, and scheduling. On Wednesday, November 3rd, Mr. PJ attended a professional development workshop called Better Conversations Every Day, presented by the Vermont Principals Association. This came at the suggestion, good evening, welcome, thank you for coming. At the suggestion of other members of the administrative team that had already taken it, including Mr. Anton, the training delivered high-quality practical skills for leaders to improve their effectiveness and relationships. Given the past few months, I thought it would be a good use, and I could get all the help I could in improving any relationships that I might be able to improve. After not having any applicants for the supervisory union posting that included our 1 half-day week for a school social worker, Mr. PJ took it upon himself to try and find someone. Miraculously, he was able to get a former Leland and Gray student who has a bachelor's degree in psychology and is about to finish her master's degree in clinical mental health counseling to agree to come for 4 hours per week to meet with the students. Thanks to Bill for being in contact with her supervisor to set all this up so quickly so that our students can begin to get the benefits from those services. Thank you, Bill. The dirt pile in the back of the school has been reshaped and is now ready for sledding this winter. Thank you to Eric Malkowski and Chris May for helping out with this. Now the students will have a great place to sled and can still build forts in the snowbanks along the parking lot. The newly formed parent group met this past Tuesday night for its inaugural meeting. It's been many years since we had a parent group here, and we should all be excited by the possibilities for working together to make this year filled with as many opportunities as possible for our students. Some great ideas are already in the works, as I met with one of those members today to discuss some options for future good things. On October 21st, Mr. PJ received the official letter detailing the Artists in Schools grant award that we received. Thank you to Sarah Wonderly for putting together the grant so we can have a week of circus arts in the middle of winter from February 14th through the 18th. That's that report. Questions, comments, thoughts?
Oh, I have something, nothing about what you said.
Yeah.
One of your Zoom participants just messaged me and said the echo is horrible.
I am totally, that's the room.
That's the room. All right.
That's just the room.
All right, I'm sorry about the echo. It sounds like maybe that's the room. We'll try and,
Maybe I'll stand like over here.
yeah, we'll try and speak into the mic.
All right, I'll try to go over here and see if that helps with the echo. Sorry about that. I was asked to talk a little bit about bullying, in particular in relation to here at Windham Elementary School. So in preparation for that discussion, I met with another principal, Scotty Tabachnik, who works at Newbrook School and is somewhat of an expert in this area. So we met on Friday and had a long conversation about that, and he gave me some good information and provided me with one of these continuum of behavior sheets, which is available on the Vermont Human Rights Commission website. And it does a good job of really talking about the difference between rude and disrespectful behaviors, and when those types of behaviors then get elevated to bullying status, and when those types of behaviors then get elevated to harassment status, and when those types of behaviors then get up to criminal behavior and into a whole nother realm that's outside of the school. It starts with just basic rude and or disrespectful behavior, which could be anything as simple as talking down to someone, making faces, rolling your eyes, sneering, laughing, ignoring, any one of the hundreds of mean behaviors that anyone could do to someone else. The difference when it gets to the bullying level is that it's repeated over a period of time, okay? And it's the same type of behaviors coming from one student to another student over a long period of time. When something like this gets brought to me here at the school, my first response is to then begin the conversation with the people involved to find out if it truly does fit the definition of bullying or not, because there's a really particular definition with regard to that. And typically out of that meeting, it gets resolved that it is not necessarily bullying, more so it's somebody being mean or teasing or picking on somebody, and then those conversations ensue. If it was to go that route of being officially bullying and it was agreed upon by the parties involved, if that was the case, I would then certainly go to Bill and to Scotty to get whatever guidance I needed to fulfill that process of writing the letters and notifying all the participants and going through the full-on investigation. One of the differences that I feel happen here in Windham are there kids that get picked on and are mean to other kids, of course. I think that happens pretty much anywhere you go. But what, again, I feel like is different here is we have eyes on the kids almost all the time. We're so small that typically things like that can get stopped very quickly. And if they do get brought to our attention, it's something we can really focus on and pay close attention to and try to really watch out for so that it doesn't move into that realm of being a little bit more intense and a little bit more serious. One example I can provide from the past 18 years was we had a family move into town, and within a couple of days of being here, I received an email making reference to that, and then when I met with the parent, we talked through it and realized that it was not the case. It was just a matter of somebody being mean. It got worked out. It turned out that those two kids ended up being very close friends by the time that family was no longer around again. And again, I would say that's one thing that I see pretty regularly is kids who treat each other poorly at times and then end up being really close friends in the long run, which I think comes out of the small school environment. Currently, with the 16 students that we have here now, I don't feel like this is an issue at all. All the students are really young. They all treat each other really well. Do we have kids that get upset and start crying at points? Of course we do. Whether that's from other people being mean, or getting hurt, or not doing well in school, or not being able to answer a question, or just not getting enough sleep one night. The big issue with that is when that happens, within moments, there's always another student there to help console and check on those students. I've seen it happen several times already this year, where somebody's upset, and within moments, there's another student over there, arm around their back, rubbing them, checking them, asking them if they're okay. And to me, that's what makes the small environment a little bit different, is that when somebody does get upset, it seems to really impact the other students to the point where they would like to come check on it and try to help out. We do have the bullying policy here. It's rather lengthy, so that can be viewed if anybody would like to do it. I think we're going to be going over a bunch of policies over the next few meetings and modifying things and fixing things and updating things, so potentially that will happen as well.
Any questions for Mickey?
Not for Nikki.
Oh, sorry.
If any of the parents in the room got my stapler that my grandchild so graciously gave away to people he thought had hurt feelings, you can keep the highlighters and the Post-its, but I would love my stapler back.
Thank you, Crystal. Anything else for Mickey? Can I just ask quick on Zoom, how is the sound?
It's a little better. I would recommend that people actually approach the microphone and speak one at a time. The closer you are to the microphone, the less ambient noise there is.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. And as Mickey said, we are going to be, oh, sorry, is there somebody else?
No, just the new iPhone.
Oh, the new iPhone. If you could please identify yourself.
Michael Pelton.
Thank you, Michael. And as Mickey said, we are in new business. We're going to be going over, reviewing and warning some policies. Code C10 is prevention of harassment, hazing, and bullying policy. Bullying, what constitutes bullying and how it is handled. And I do have a couple of copies available when we get to that point.
Can I just add one last thing?
You certainly can.
I wouldn't fault anybody here in this room, on Zoom, anywhere at this point for not wanting to believe what I'm saying, because I clearly have a jaded, biased opinion. And what I would recommend is, if that is the case for you, please come and talk to some of the other adults that are in this building that go to the other schools. Whether it's the music teacher, the PE teacher, some of the other itinerants. There's new ones this year that have never been to the school except for the past 2 months. And I would almost guarantee you they will tell you the same thing, that the students here treat each other differently. There's a different feel. Yes, it's a lot smaller, so I understand that's why it's a different feel, but you can ask any of those people who do not have the same allegiance to the school that I do the same question, and I would imagine you will get a similar answer. All right, thanks.
No, thank you. Mr. Anton.
Mickey, what are you going to tonight?
So, a couple other things too, while I got the floor, thanks.
Mike.
Tonight, I'm heading down to my son's music concerts, the first live concert at Leland and Gray, I think, in 2 years or thereabouts. He plays the saxophone, the Barry saxophone. It's a gigantic instrument, as big as he is. So I'm really excited to go see that. I also have been given amazing feedback about 2 of our former students who were in the play, the musical this past week, and what a great job they did. A number of students from here went to see them, and I guess they really knocked it out of the park. So congratulations to our former students who really showed up for that performance. And thank you for telling me where I'm going.
Didn't want you to be late.
Okay, unless there's anything else for Mickey, we can move on.
Thank you, everybody, for letting me be first.
Yeah, go see your child.
Thank you.
Next is minutes and correspondence. Carolyn, you wanted to do?
So maybe for the sake of Peter, I will take my mask down. I was able to review the minutes for October 19th, and I want to thank Peter Barris for doing a fantastic job. I have a few very, very minor changes, corrections, and I will go through them. I was not able to somehow translate this into a trackable document. Maybe we can work on that, but these are minor changes. So under members of the public, and now I'm wondering, because it's spelled differently here, but I think Bridget Blanchard's name has a TE at the end of Bridget. Is that correct, Bridget?
Oh yeah, it does, but that's okay. I'm used to that.
Well, if we're going to do it, we might as well do it correctly. But thank you. Then under Peter Barris, it says reorder. I think he's the recorder.
Oh.
Then on page 3, under the superintendent's report, halfway down the page, it says, in response to a question, Mr. Anton explained that the intra-union choice proposal was not related to whether the school was closed. I think he meant whether, but I could be wrong, Peter, if that's incorrect.
Autocorrect.
Yeah, I figured. Then the top of page 5, there was a discussion of the questions regarding the Vermont School Board's Insurance Trust. On the third bullet, I think it should be vendors are also required to have liability insurance, not vendor are also. And page 6, Ms. Pelton, Abby Pelton, let's see if I can find it here easily. Ms. Pelton, community struggles and encourage counseling. Ms. Pelton asked about fundraising for budget items. Mr. Anton explained that fundraising could be done for normal operation of a school. I think it could not be done for normal operation of a school, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And then finally on page 7, toward the bottom, it says next meeting. Well, if you go up a little bit from the adjournment, next meeting November 26th. That's the 16th?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Today.
Yep, so just change that from 26 to 16. And that's it. And thank you, Peter, for doing an outstanding job on the minutes. Really appreciate it.
Always gratifying to find that people read.
Yes.
Okay, then do we want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move with those corrections.
Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, so those minutes pass. And then we still have approval of the minutes for August 24th, August 28th, September 21st, and September 28th.
And I'm working on them.
And you're working on them, so we want to continue to table
Yeah,
those?
There was some confusion. I think we moved that Peter Barris would redo the September 24th ones. But I don't know that that message got through to him
Yeah, he'll need a copy of the
directly.
September 24th.
Yes.
All right, so Peter, we'll get you a copy of what we have for the minutes for September 24th, and then we'll revisit that at the next meeting. Does that sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
I think I understood that.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Next is correspondence. I don't know if anybody else, I have some correspondence, but Carolyn, Russ, if you have anything?
No, nothing
No.
else.
So I have correspondence, Russ, from you, and then I got an answer from Terry and my Kathy Scott, sorry, I should refer to her as my mom, about the
Michael Pelton.
postage, the payment for the postage, and their response was, it was purchased on the town credit card, and we will submit a bill later this week for that, and the envelopes purchased from Jet. We decided to submit all bills after both votes were complete. So she and Mike McLean are both aware of that. I also got a correspondence from Michael Pelton, of which I have a couple copies, because I think they're kind of interesting, which I'm happy to, if people want to, I have one more, Bridget. About a lunch program, here we go, and some thoughts about homeschool students. So I just want everybody to know, Michael, I want you to know I printed those copies out and I've handed them out, and that is something that we can look at. I think some of it will be involved today. There's some discussion about the lunch program. Does that sound okay with you?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for sending them. And then the other correspondence I got was, there was one more. Oh, from Bridget Corby. I'm sorry, I just made a note. Who emailed me today because we've been trying to work with Leland and Gray as far as their co-op program, putting Leland and Gray students out into the workforce. There's been a discussion about potentially having a Leland and Gray student come in as a foreign language teacher. We have one student from Leland and Gray who's being an assistant, a teaching assistant to Mickey and Sarah, and I'm happy, Bridget, if you want to talk about that.
It was actually Bridget Blanchard.
Oh, sorry, Bridget Blanchard. I'm sorry, Bridget Blanchard. So Bridget Blanchard, I did contact Terry today. I forwarded your message, and I appreciate that, and I'm waiting to hear back, but that's definitely something in the works, so I appreciate that you're on top of that.
Oh, great, thank you.
You're welcome. And that's all of my correspondence, I think.
Hey, that was about the LG co-op program?
That was about the LG co-op program, which is run by Terry Davidson Berger.
It was not for the close.
What?
It was not for the close. It was for the Blanchard.
I'm sorry, yes, it was Bridget Blanchard. That was my mistake. It was not Bridget Corby. Thank you, Peter. That's all I have for minutes and correspondence. So unless there's something else that I missed, oh, go ahead, Crystal.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
Did you guys figure out the minutes or for the first informational meeting, the one that did not get recorded?
What?
That's, I think we're still in the work with that, yeah. We have that on here. That was was that the August 24th meeting? Or the 28th?
28th.
It was the 28th. So that is something that we're still working towards. Sure.
Are we discussing this correspondence? Is that open for discussion?
Sure, yeah.
So I don't understand why the meeting house would be affected. They don't have any stoves there, right? To have food, why wouldn't they use the West Townsend Country Store, which has a commercial kitchen?
Oh,
And
that's,
has been doing it for years.
yeah, that's certainly something. We go ahead, Carolyn.
I had a conversation with Michael today, and I explained to him that the kitchen at the meeting house was not a commercially approved kitchen, and suggested the West River Community Project. However, there are complications, and we can hear more about the meal program, because it's not only having a commercial kitchen, but it's knowing all of the guidelines around making the food, because it has to meet nutritional requirements for to be counted and correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, but there's a lot of paperwork and that sort of thing. So if this is just my opinion, and it's not, and I'm open to suggestion, but it would seem that if we were going to do a meal program, that it would make sense to use what's already going on at the high school. Is that where they're producing the food?
That's what
Yeah.
they're producing.
And because they're doing the paperwork, they're making sure all the nutritional guidelines are met, et cetera, et cetera. We could set something else up.
Oh, so they would be cooking at the high school?
Potentially,
They would
yes.
be cooking?
Yep.
'Cause I didn't think they had cooking equipment there.
What's that?
Full commercial kitchen.
Okay, great.
That's great. No, that was a good suggestion, the West Townsend Community Project. So, but we can we'll continue that discussion in old business, so, but thank you for bringing that up. Okay, unless there's anything about correspondence, we have bills and pay orders, which I handed out.
So I'll move.
I just had one question. Laurie, the VE Health Program, there were 2 blanket payments. If you could just let me know that that's okay, I'll take your word for it.
I believe it is. I would have to relook at it though. It's probably 2 months.
Okay, so it's pay order 17, VE Health Program, yeah, just 2 for health insurance, so they're both dated 11/11.
Okay, I'll look into that and get an answer for you. I don't want to commit, but it sounds like 2 months were paid at once, which sometimes happens depending on the schedule. So
Great.
I'll get an answer for you though.
Thank you, Laurie. So we'll just table that one. So I would be looking for approval for pay orders 13, 15, and 16. I do not have a copy of 14.
I'll move that.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
I
Sorry.
have a question about an invoice that came from Boca Cook LLC.
Laurie, could you, that's also pay order 17, which we're going to table, but Laurie,
We're tabling that?
well, we're going to table 17 because that's where the 2
Oh.
payments to be. That's fine, no, I'd like to know, you're right, I should have highlighted that. Laurie, we also had a question about Boca Cook on pay order 17, food and drink for Windham. Great, thank you.
Can I express my concern?
Sure, yeah.
The Boca Cook has an address of 418 Howard Hill Road in Chester, Vermont, which is actually 418 Howard Hill Road in Windham. And it happens to be a residence that is uninhabitable. And it happens to be the address to which the check was sent. So I'm wondering where the food is prepared. Obviously, it cannot be prepared at that location. I'm also interested in licensing for that particular facility. I did some checking online, and I don't see that there is a license for catering issued to the Boca Cook LLC. So I'd like some clarification for that later.
That's fine. Laura, you got that?
Yep.
And I'm certain that I know the answer to that, and I believe it involves the West Townsend Country Store community project, which does have a commercial kitchen. So I can talk to you more about that and send you the information that I have.
Great.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion to approve pay orders 13, 15, and 16, please.
I already did. Russ
I seconded.
seconded.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. That's bills and pay orders. We did the principal's report, so now we're on to the superintendent's report.
We're going to talk later about intra-SU choice. Okay. The weighting study is going to be completed on December 15th. The task force has to have a final report by December 15th. I was asked to testify at some November meeting, specifically on the excess spending threshold. And my suggestion to the committee was going to be to continue the moratorium of the excess spending threshold while they figure out how they're going to implement the weighting study. But they had an hour-long discussion prior to my testimony about all of them agreeing that they wanted to have a moratorium on the excess spending threshold. So my testimony was about 2 minutes long, complimenting them on their conversation. Rescue Inc. is, again, come through for the WCSU. We have a vaccine clinic tomorrow at Leland and Gray from 3 to 5:30. This is specifically for 5 to 11-year-olds, as well as any 12 to 18-year-olds that have not had a first shot or need a second shot, or any WCSU adults that need a booster shot. This is very similar to what happened in March. Rescue Inc. is going to be doing it at Leland and Gray with their trailers. We're just unbelievably fortunate that Rescue Inc. is so supportive of our community down here. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them. And then I believe it was, I'm positive, it's Ms. Pelton has been very interested in the answer from the attorney about being able to raise private funds for school. And so I was able to speak with the attorney today, finally. And the statute is very specific to towns giving money to a school to try to offset the tax rate. So in specific to raising money by parents or a donation for use in the school, as long as it is not used for mandated items of the state. For example, if it is not used for books that students would need to have to access the curriculum, but were extra books. If you needed a teacher and you didn't put it in the budget, but then you raised money and had those parent or community donations pay for the teacher, that would be a problem. Other than that, as long as it is not specific that it is mandated by the state, a PTO can go ahead and raise money. We can go ahead and set up an opportunity to receive donations from the community. If a choice is going to be made about how the money is going to be used and there's a question, I would just make sure that you ask and check with me. I asked specifically about if we wanted to redo an entire floor. It's not mandated that you replace a floor. So if money came in that was wanted to be donated to replace a floor, as long as we followed asbestos abatement, things like that are possible. So Abby, I know you're not on, but Michael, if you can let her know that I appreciate her advocacy.
Ironically, she's trying to get on right now.
Okay.
But she'll be very happy.
Well, I appreciate her advocacy and I appreciate her consistency, and I'm sorry it took so long. I just didn't want to give incorrect information, but the floodgates are open. So commonly this happens through a parent-teacher organization, but if there are other avenues that would like to be followed, I'm more than happy to help assist that environment, but just happy to get that answer.
Thank you very much.
You bet. And that's what I have for the superintendent.
And so that includes painting the building?
Again, as long as we make sure that we're doing
Great.
all of our lead and things of that nature, but yes.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Anton, the superintendent? No? Everybody's good?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. Do you think that Rescue Inc. will be doing any like future clinics? Is this?
They're going to do one 3 weeks after tomorrow.
Okay.
And then they were hired by VDH. VDH was trying to do them at schools. They were having a tough time coming down to the south because they're having, well, in the west, they're having some serious challenges in Rutland County and Bennington County, but the north is really high transmission rate. So it was unique for us to be able to work with Rescue Inc. Vermont Department of Health is looking to do some in December, but we don't have any confirmation.
And my follow-up question, I know we've been getting a lot of information as parents about like the clinics and the test to stay.
Yeah.
Are the schools going to start tracking who is and who isn't in order to affect the mask policy down the road? Is that part of the plan, or is it right now just?
So it gets logged, and our nurses are now allowed to go in to know the mask policy mandate. So now that we have an eligible population, say here, we will be able to track that. It gets updated every day at 4 a.m. So probably in mid to early December, we'll start getting some numbers that will allow us to make those decisions of the crossing over the 80% barrier.
You said 3 to 5:30 tomorrow?
It's 3 to 5:30. We sent out when the slots are for people. If you can't make your slot, 5 o'clock is the time to go.
I have a friend, my boys are done.
You're good to go.
Lee, you had a question?
I'm sorry, is it mandated that the children at this school get this COVID-19 vaccination?
No, it's not mandated for anyone.
I mean, they can still come to school, correct?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Again, anything else for the superintendent?
Ask one question.
Of course.
So if a child is not vaccinated, are they going to be required to wear a mask when and if theoretically other children won't be required to?
According to the current guidance, unless it changes, it's just 80% of the eligible population, a mask is not required. And it does not differentiate between vaccinated and unvaccinated. Short answer. Yeah.
Okay. Is everybody good? Anything else for the superintendent?
Bridget?
I just had a question.
Yep.
So the test is today, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that, but, would that be a school nurse coming to school every Monday to test the kids? Is that how that kind of works?
It's kind of a rapid response, so it's only for unvaccinated students. So we have 3 nurses in the WCSU, and so for example, if it was necessary to do a test to stay program at Windham, what we would do is we deploy at minimum 1 nurse and my administrative assistant from central office are the 2 people that will always be on site, and they will administer the antigen tests, and if it is positive, the child has to go home, and if it's negative, the child gets to come into school. And more than likely in a place like Windham, we'd probably close this door here, we'd bring people in from the outside, they would test it here, they'd wait for 20 minutes, they'd see if it is able to enter into the rest of the school building or not. And that has to be done over 7 consecutive days. So one of the 3 school nurses employed by the WCSU would be here, along with my administrative assistant to administer the antigen tests. And then we also have PCR tests that if a child has symptoms and the parent has already consented, they could take the PCR test that day as well.
Go ahead, Bridget, and then Crystal.
I think Alexis has her hand up.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Alexis.
Hi, I just had a question. When they get vaccinated, I know I got pretty sick and Eric did not. How will it work if the kids get sick? Is it gonna count against them, like for missing school? How is that gonna work? Are they still gonna be required to do like homework if they're miserable? Can somebody just clarify for me? I'm sorry if that's a dumb question.
No, it's not a dumb question at all. Very common, had this many times. A child is sick, a child is sick. We're not sending work home with them unless the parent calls and says, hey, my child's sick, but they'd really like to have some work. A child is sick, a child is sick. That is no judgment, no difference, no problem.
No, that was a good question, Alexis. I gave my 16-year-old a mental health day yesterday, so, and she's a 16-year-old, so it's got to work for the kids. Bridget.
Test to stay, is that just based on if they have an exposure or symptoms, or is that just whoever?
Test to stay is when you have a positive case in the school.
Okay.
And you've been named a close contact.
Okay, got it.
And you are unvaccinated.
So that's only
and your parents have consented.
Okay.
It's a lot of layers.
Yep.
Did you have something, Crystal?
So, because this is a very small school.
Yes.
And these kids are in close contact.
They are.
If one child has...
Odds are good.
Can you take your mask down when you speak, Crystal, because you mumble a little bit?
So if one child tests positive...
Yes.
Is it likely the whole school is out 14 days?
No. It depends on, are you vaccinated or are you unvaccinated? Are you consenting to participating in test to stay or not? And do you fit the criteria for a close contact?
Okay.
So it's whatever the VDA, I can't verbatim tell you, but it's 15 minutes within 24 hours of a close contact who was symptomatic at the time.
So some of the parents were talking about it because of the test to stay, and they were like, crap, you know, what is the protocol? Like, are they prepared to go remote if that happened?
So we're not allowed to go remote. Remote is not an option this year under the guidance from the Agency of Education. We can provide work, but we cannot be a fully remote school. It's a good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Lee?
Okay, so I have a question. If unvaccinated children will show more symptoms, why are you testing them? Because the vaccinated children that could be positive won't show the symptoms. So I'm not sure how you got to that.
Because that's what the Vermont Department of Health tells us.
All right. So it's not based on anything, it's just their choice.
It's based on our guidance from the Vermont Department of Health.
Okay. Well, it's good enough for me.
You bet.
Is there anything else?
iPhone has a question.
iPhone.
I need to know who they are.
iPhone, if you could please identify yourself.
It's Abby Pelton.
You're on.
Awesome. So sorry it took me so long to get on Zoom. I was having some difficulties there, but so apparently I also missed Mr. PJ. Did anyone ask about the counseling, or do we have any updates regarding what's going on with that? Because none of my little minions have mentioned meeting anyone new.
December 1st.
What was that?
It starts December 1st.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
Hey, no, thanks for following up.
Okay. Unless there's anybody else for the superintendent, we can move into old business, which is the school meal program discussion and motion. I unfortunately know I printed it out, but I seem to have 1,000 pieces of paper here and not that one. Thank you.
So this was already done at an earlier meeting, but our person who is responsible for the food nutrition program, in the minutes, it's not specific enough. And so tonight, I'm asking the board to affirm your previous decision, that exact reading.
Okay, so this is for an exemption. So that does not mean that we're not going to discuss future lunch programs. This is just for this year right now. And we did go through it, and I'm sorry that we have to do it again. But exemption, the school board of a public school district that wishes to be exempt from the provisions of section 1264 of this title may vote at a meeting warned and held for that purpose to exempt itself from the requirement to offer either the school lunch program or the school breakfast program or both for a period of 1 year. Can I get a motion on that?
So I'll move to exempt Windham School from the lunch and breakfast program for a period of a year. And my reading of this is that it is under 16 VSA section 1265, and we are exempting ourselves from provisions of section 1264 of that title.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Again, we're going to discuss. Go ahead.
Can you explain what that means?
It means that a board has to annually decide not to have.
So this is for the year we're in
Currently.
Yes.
Okay.
We did it before,
It
but
has to be done before November 1st. We did it before November 1st, but the minutes were not specific enough. So I need the board to reaffirm that decision and have it very specific in the minutes, because I have to turn that into the state.
Okay.
When-
So nothing to do with future discussion?
no, not at all. No, we're gonna move on to that unless there's any, go ahead.
Can you go back to the previous discussion about why we're not doing it or trying to do it, to have food for the children this year? What are the reasons behind not doing it?
I think we have had food for the children through Mickey. We've had a breakfast program, but otherwise I think it's our kitchen and, but that's what we're gonna discuss once we approve this.
So I guess the question is, why not discuss that first before approving it? Because I think some of the families do want to have a school lunch program for this current year, not for next year.
And you could have one tomorrow, but I need this because you haven't had a food program. You can have one tomorrow. But if you guys do not vote for this, you guys will get fined. So it's a choice you have to make.
Is there anything else? Does everybody understand that?
This does not stop you from having one literally tomorrow, but you're going to have a USD, a approved and trained staff, and a system in place, which won't happen tomorrow. But you're not operating one now. So
But with that though, if we claim exempt from this,
yeah.
would any of those grants for, or whatever, provision 17, am I right on that one?
Yeah, you guys aren't eligible because you don't run a program.
Because we don't work, but if we joined the program,
It's possible.
it wouldn't affect any of those grants or provisions.
This right here?
Yes.
The
if we-
moment,
if
the moment you
change the
start a
minor-
program, then
that becomes null and void.
I mean, I
So
can't guarantee you're going to get grants because you don't run a program. Until you run a program, you're not eligible for the grant. But I am confident that you need to do this now.
Was there any other discussions? People understand that this is just something we need to do now to satisfy the state requirement, but it does not mean that we cannot have a program in the future,
Or later in the school year.
which is the
Right.
future.
And the families are going to continue to work on that issue. And we have some really great ideas that I hope we're going to discuss a little bit further into the meeting.
Yep, that's what we're going to discuss for old business.
Thank you. Bridget, on Zoom.
Bridget.
Oh, if you're gonna discuss it later, I can just wait.
Okay, unless there's any other discussion, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion passes. My thought, we can continue this discussion now, or we can go on to other.
So Norman, he's fine. Buddy, no.
Aw, that was cute. We could either continue the discussion now, or we could go on to new business and do the policies and talk about the lunch program and old business, because we brought it up before. So whatever anybody wants to do. I'm asking the other board members to please weigh in on that.
Let's proceed and to discuss it at the end.
Great. So we're going to
Let's get
move.
some stuff done.
We're getting a lot done here. We're going to continue the lunch discussion in old business. Right now, we're going to go to new business.
Budget.
We're going to get into the budget. FY 2023 budget discussion. Director of Finance, Laurie Garland.
Good evening, everyone. So I wanted to start out by talking about where you're at for this year. First of all, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So we ended fiscal year 21, ended the year roughly with a $92,000 fund balance, of which you did decide to use or to overspend this year's budget to pay off the deficit loan. So that leaves you somewhere in the $70,000 fund balance realm. So I also took a look at this year's budget, and that loan has been paid off in full. So that's great news. And you're also running about $33,000 ahead, even after paying that loan off, which is attributed to a couple of different areas that I saw. Music, nothing's been spent on music this year. I think that Mickey's maybe had some volunteer type music come in, but nothing has been spent on it. And then also pre-K tuition, that's about $21,000 that I don't see anything has been spent there yet. So that may be coming, but by now I would have expected to see at least a half a year's pre-K tuition costs going out the door. So again, looking good for this year. So the budget that I sent out to the board is the same budget that you have been looking at for the past few months. I thought it would be best if I didn't introduce a different budget at this point until the board really had time to look at this, and also I knew there was going to be some discussion around it. So there are things that need to be updated in this, the superintendent's budget, the MTSS, which stands for multi-tiered systems of support, which is a combination of the academic support and special ed budgets. That was passed, as well as the ECSE was passed at the last super board meeting. So those will be updated. Affects this budget by roughly around $3,700. So not a big jump there. I'm happy to go down line by line if that's what the board would like. If you just to refresh your memory on what is what. Or I can open it up for questions.
Looks like Russ has a question.
Yeah, can either you or Bill explain to the people that are on Zoom and in the room what the impact of the special education Act 173 and the amendment or the motion that was made by the board, how that will impact the possibility that there could be or could not be a 800-pound gorilla in the closet for special ed at some point in the future?
Are you talking about the mitigation measures that was approved by the board?
So I think it's important that people understand how the risk that we had before has been mitigated completely, and I don't think they understand that.
Bill, I think he's talking about the ECSE.
ECSE, specific to the ECSE? Right. Okay. You go for it, Laurie.
Sure. So the ECSE budget, which stands for Early Childhood Special Education Budget, is not actually part of Act 173. It is still separate, and the way that it was distributed was there are some base costs that were distributed by ADM, Average Daily Membership, to all of the districts. And then if a district needed or had a student that maybe needed specialized transportation, a one-to-one paraeducator, or any type of specialized services, that would be billed directly to the district. And the board, Russ actually brought this up to the board, and the board did make the change to how they share the costs, in which now they share all the costs. So what that means in terms of, Windham is a couple of years ago, we had to budget, well, first of all, they were unbudgeted costs for 2 paraeducators. And so that was a $40,000 bill that they were not anticipating. And then the next year we budgeted for it, and then the family moved out. So what this does now is share all of those costs. So they're, as Russ is talking about the gorilla, basically, if something like that happens now, Windham is only paying a small percentage of that cost. The board, the WCSU board, has always felt very strongly about early intervention, and this is another way that they're acting on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have questions for Laurie?
I do.
Sure, Abby.
So, thank you. So I wanted to clarify, maybe you or Bill could also chime in on this. Does special education also fall under for academic, higher academic achievement for children who may be gifted or have other advanced learning?
The special education law is a continuum. So yes, there are definitions.
Correct.
Rare, but Windham is, and I believe there's a few parents who have some kids that have some advanced learning. So just throwing that out there, it's not only for children who have learning disabilities. Some of those disabilities may actually be pretty unique and cool for our little school. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Anybody else?
Can I ask a question that's not about that topic, but the budget? So Laurie had mentioned that the music program, we haven't spent anything on it because I think Sally is a volunteer. For this year's budget, if that's like $10,000 that's not spent, are there other things along those lines that Mickey could be spending that on? Like, could it go towards art supplies or an art program? Is it specifically a music teacher, supplies for a music program?
That's a good question, Laurie.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a board decision to let, the public is voting on the bottom line number. They're not voting on a line to line, but the board can give Mickey that latitude to say, yeah, we need to have more art supplies. So we'll overspend the art and underspend the music.
And if he doesn't spend that line item this year, do we lose it in future years? Okay, so it's just year to year what
You never lose it. It would go into offset something that you overspent, or it goes into a surplus.
Okay.
Those are really good questions. I'm really glad that you're putting that out there. And it's not just so people know, it's not just Sally that's coming, it's also Kate Ullman, who was the music teacher here for years, and I can't begin to say enough about Kate, and I'm really, really grateful that I saw her at the play, and she loves coming up here, so that's a gift to Windham. Anybody else with the budget?
Oh, I just had a question kind of on what Bridget was talking about.
Yeah.
So could that also be, I know that our kids, probably about half of them are going to be doing the GIST program. And is that, I know Mickey already left, but that is only Stratton, that is only skiing on Stratton, downhill skiing. I was wondering if some of that money could be spent toward doing a GIST program down at, like Riley Ring for kids to go ice skating.
That's a good question.
So I don't know. I know that Michael Pelton was gonna, and probably Bridget too, are gonna kind of work on doing activities with the kids who are not going to be skiing, but also maybe that the music money could be spent toward maybe doing that. I don't know.
Sure, I think it's the same thing. It could be spent in the enrichment line. There's an enrichment line item in here for field trips and different items that they do throughout the year. So I would say that's probably falls under the same line of thinking as art supplies.
That's great. Thank you.
And just to follow up, so basically the board would have to empower the principal what freedom the principal has. So whatever you hear tonight, whatever you hear in the future, it'll just be important because you'll be underspending one item, overspending. So when you get an audit, we'll just need to be able to have minutes that said something to that effect.
No, it's great. I think it really speaks to, sorry, Carolyn, it speaks to the participation and the parent group. Whether you're on the parent group or you're just participating as a parent, this is what we need to hear. This is your school, so I'm really incredibly encouraged. Carolyn.
I'd like to also say that historically, parents have participated, and Sally has done, rather than going to Stratton, the kids, we have all sorts of cross-country skis here, and the kids will do some cross-country skiing in the backyard, down the nature trail. Alan and I were just reflecting the other day about when he worked so hard on a skating rink back here.
We did have
so that's another thing that parents have done in the past, which has been a lot of fun. The kids not only do it on Wednesday afternoons, but they also have their skates here, and they'll do it for recess, phys ed, whatever.
And we've also gone to Grafton. Yeah, that was something too. So we did have an ice skating rink here, and that was fun.
Yeah.
Nice.
Are we going to be able to get the kids to ceramics?
That's a great question. That's something, absolutely. We can talk to, Mickey about we can bring that up, and parents, if that's something, yeah, that they're interested in.
I couldn't hear the question, I'm sorry.
About attending ceramics at Meadowsby Farm. It's something that
Nice.
it's something we've done in the past as part of our art program. I think we've run a 6-week series.
Blacksmithing.
And yeah.
I old enough for that.
We have had a blacksmithing course for older students, but yeah, so those are also options that we can, we can definitely try and schedule. And those are things we can talk about between the parent group and the parents and Mickey. So those are all great additions. Anything else about the budget?
Do you want me to continue on about the, just how it flows into the tax rate?
Sure.
Okay. So at the bottom on page 3, you'll see the tax rate calculation. And this is, of course, based on a lot of assumptions at this point. After December 1st, we'll have some better numbers. We'll know what the yield is going to come out at. And then our census just happened. So by December 15th or so, we'll know where that equalized pupil number comes into. I think it may be a little lower than this 18.9 that I have estimated on here from my quick calculations based on census. So we'll have to wait and see about that. But right now, based on this particular budget, which we know has got a few changes coming, the tax rate would come in, and again, this is an estimate, of $1.80. As you can see partway down the page, the tax rate for Windham is made up in 2 parts. It's made up for the elementary part, which is 69% of the students, the total count of Windham students. And then it's also made up by the secondary, which is 30% or almost 31% of the total students, which attend Leland and Gray. So, we have to wait until we see what Leland and Gray, or West River's unified tax rate comes out to before really any other estimates can be made. But I just put in a number of where I think they might come out this year. So, as we talked about before, roughly $3,000, if you will add a penny to this, give or take. So, yeah, does anybody have any questions on the tax rate? It is a 17-cent increase from last year's tax rate, which was $1.64.
Oh, go ahead, Bridget.
So I do see on the line item that talks about teachers, this is based on moving Sarah to a teaching position. Is there where are you guys looking at hiring an admin? What line would that be?
So if you were to add in a administrative assistant, then if you look at page 2, under the principal's office, the 2410, we would move that clerical position, or that clerical position would stay there, and then we would increase the teacher.
So this tax rate is based off of Sarah's teacher and an admin?
No, this is based on exactly what you have now.
So, okay, so if she were to move to a teacher position, I'd assume there'd have to be an increase to cover the role that wouldn't be filled.
Correct. There would be an increase for a half-time administrative assistant.
Okay, thank you.
Bill.
So as we're discussing the budget now, would this be the time for the board to hear suggestions about how to augment what is currently here so that Laurie can bring back something different at your next board meeting? How would you guys like to handle that?
Yeah, sure.
I'm hearing ideas and I don't want them to get lost.
Yeah.
And so, for example, that suggestion right there, because Laurie will make a list. Would the board like that to be updated in the next version where there are 2 teachers and a half-time admin assistant.
Yeah, I think that sounds like that's an interest, so, and a concern, so sure, absolutely, I would. Carolyn and Russ, please feel free to weigh in.
I think if people want to have food for 2023, it's the time to discuss what it would be. If people want to have foreign language, or they want to have art or some other item, they need to express it so we can include in options on page 3A or whatever.
Well, actually, now we're off options. We're putting it right in.
I mean, we need to know what they're going to cost and then discuss it, So,
perfect.
I mean, if you want a food program, how much do you want,
Great.
So, just Laurie. So, the next version will include 2 full-time teachers and a half-time admin assistant.
Got it.
Okay. And I'm going to guess you're going to hear some more suggestions that the board will consider.
Abby, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Yeah.
So thank you, Bridget. That's a fabulous idea. I'm totally on board with that. And while we're dreaming big, it'd be really great if it was a admin/nurse person, but that's just me dreaming big. So anyway, my real question was to Laurie, when you are redoing the budget and including these numbers to give us a estimate of what it would look like, could you also give us some comparisons as well, like of surrounding towns of what they have as projected
Budgets.
Projected budgets? Sure, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in so that Laurie doesn't overpromise here. So understand that this is the exact same process we're doing with West River, River Valleys, Marlboro. So whatever we bring back, they're gonna change theirs as well. So I wanna minimize expectations of comparables because they're in a process as well. Does that make sense to you, Abby?
Okay. Abby, did you hear that?
Yes, I couldn't unmute my phone. I'm so sorry. Yes, thank you, Bill. I do understand. So, but maybe we could go by what they had for last year or something, just something to give us a ballpark without creating too much work would be a nice comparison. Thank you.
Abby, can I ask a clarifying question? Are you talking about a budget as a whole, or are you talking about, how many administrative assistants do they have and, that type of thing? I just want to make sure I understand what you're getting.
That's a very good point. I was just looking at the percentages and trying to think of how we're in comparison, but they are larger areas. So that would include a lot more, wouldn't it? Right. No, I guess I just will stay with, the nurse/admin, because I dream big. Thank you.
Thanks.
While we're at it real quick, can we talk about the nurse? What we have for the nurse, we have the line item here.
I think you have a 0.01 nurse. Is that correct, Laurie?
It is. It's part of West Rivers, and I believe it's mainly doing the records, really, is what I'm understanding that to be.
Yes. It is doing the records of each student as they come in the year, but there's really no nursing service.
So I just want to be clear, Abby, so you're looking for something, a nurse in the building? Do you have a thought about that?
So, we all wear many hats and, I think we all feel that pressure. It's not unrealistic that somebody who would be in an admin role could potentially also have some medical background and be able to take people's temps and deal with a situation so it takes it off of the parents. But if they're also doing administrative work, it's the teacher piece. So what did I say?
Take the pressure off
the teachers, not the parents. Yes, that's what I meant. Thank you, Michael.
Okay, thank you. Bridget.
So I would definitely, for meeting suggestions, that probably would be my strongest from my perspective. If there's anything we walk away with, I would love to see one more staff hired in the form of an admin. I think Sarah's doing a ton of work, and there's more kids coming in, and she's probably gonna have a pretty big group next year because they're pretty young in there, and I just think that it would be really hard for her to be the teacher and the admin. So if there was anything on a wish list, I think that to me is super important, just so she can kind of focus on that. To kind of jump off of what Abby's saying, I don't know, just from a hiring perspective, to get someone with a nursing background and that's going to do admin work, they probably wouldn't be in that price point. I'm assuming the teachers are CPR certified. Could we do have the staff do like a basic first aid course at some point, so we don't have a nurse, but they just have like a little bit of extra basic first aid, so that if we don't have a nurse on hand, but they need to handle something?
So it's very common. Nobody has a full-time nurse except for the high school.
Yeah.
So it's very common for all admin, administrative assistants to regularly get first aid, CPR training, and then to augment that with, a half day a week or a day a week where a nurse does go.
Okay.
That is the most common configuration in schools less than 100 students.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
I think it's important to realize that some of the nurses' functions do not involve puncturing the skin, but if someone has a reaction and you have an EpiPen, you need to be certified, or someone needs to be specifically instructed for the administration of an EpiPen because it's puncturing the skin. So you can take temperatures, you can, put a Band-Aid on a scrape or something, but there's a certain level of attention that requires special training, and some of that can be provided by a licensed practical nurse or an RN, but it cannot be done by just someone who's an administrator who cannot administer an EpiPen if some child is having a reaction.
Do we have background, or do you have specifics to that EpiPen? Because I'd like to know.
I do not know.
Because I have an EpiPen, and I know that with certain camps my children have gone through, they ask if you have an EpiPen, so that's a great question.
I will follow up.
A parent can administer it through their child, but a teacher can't.
We're going to look into it, yeah, that's why I asked, thank you.
Specific
Crystal,
rules.
did you have something?
So my suggestion is for transportation, but after what Russ said, I just want to point out, when Tyler was here and he had the brain thing, you guys were able to have a licensed public health nurse come in, and she had to meet with Nikki and the bus driver, and I think Gail, and somehow they were certified. Say Tyler had to have medication administered specially, so they had to get trained. So it's probably good to know if you have kids that have an EpiPen, and reach out to public health, because that might be an option.
Okay. I know.
But I wanted to touch on transportation, sorry. We have Cord. Cord is wonderful. It really stresses Cord out when he's going to be taking a few days off. And I don't know if any of the other parents, what is this doing to you? He's very stressed about the spot he might be putting the parents in, because we always get told Carolyn's the substitute, but to be honest, how often do you do it?
Well, I've done it twice this year, and I couldn't do it before Halloween because I was having my knee replaced on November 1st.
And I understand that. We need a substitute that can substitute.
We do. We need somebody in the community that wants to drive a bus.
Well, and they don't even have to be in the community, like.
No, right, we just need somebody that wants to, believe me, Cora's been looking for.
Because I always feel awful that Cord is so stressed about taking a couple days off to, you know, see his daughter or go to a doctor's appointment. Because he really does worry about the spot it puts us parents in. And for some of the parents, it does put them in a spot. So we absolutely have to figure out.
Just so I'm clear, are you talking about it stresses parents or it puts them in a tough spot, parents getting to Windham, to elementary school, or are you talking about to Leland and Gray?
Probably both.
Oh, okay.
I would imagine.
I can talk to him about that. I hate to hear that he might be super stressed.
Yeah, I mean, he worries that, you know, is your boss getting mad, or, you know, you've got a kid at Leland and Gray, and here is the time constraint okay. He really does worry that, you know.
Yeah, I know he would love to have, aside from Carolyn, who's backed him up a number of times, somebody else.
Can I just make a suggestion?
Well, Bridget Corby had her hand up first.
I was just gonna suggest, can we put like something like the news and notes that anyone want to be a substitute bus driver, just see if anyone in the community takes a bite on it. I don't know, I'm sure there's some like classes and stuff that you have to go through,
Yeah.
but just to have someone that's already gone through that, you know, because I know that Carolyn's a substitute, but if we can get like one or two other people, take a little of that pressure off.
Yeah, great, thank you. Sorry, Russ, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, in Connecticut, there was a bus company that provided transportation for Waterford, New London, Groton, Ledyard. It was the same bus company, and they had substitute drivers, so that substitute drivers could either drive a bus in Ledyard or in Groton or in Stonington or in Waterford. So it might be an opportunity for Bill to talk to West River Transportation and see if they have substitute drivers that are CDL qualified to drive a school bus, who could be arranged at some point to fill in for Cord by having someone be familiar with the routes and the timing, so that Cord would then know that he has a one substitute or a number two substitute person that could be asked to fill in for him. It's a matter of, we're a small district, we only have one driver, but in larger districts, they do have substitutes that can fill in for different districts. And I think it's a reasonable question to ask West River, can they loan us a driver so Cord can go to the doctor and get his flu shot or whatever, you know? It's easily done.
He usually, tries to.
I'll follow up with Greg.
It's only if he has to go to Dartmouth or something.
I mean, just as a course of business.
Michael Pelton, I'm sorry, Crystal, did you have?
I was going to say, maybe he just decides he's sick of the day and wants a day. Like, not that that would never happen, but it'd just be nice for him to have backup.
Michael Pelton, do you have your hand up?
Just as a side note, on Thursday I'm taking my CDL permit, and in the month of December I'm taking a course for CDL A, and then after that I would have to get endorsement for passenger and school bus, but it's sort of in the works. So I foresee at some juncture I would be available for.
Thank you, Michael. That's what I heard, but I didn't want to speak too quickly, so that's amazing. Thank you. iPhone has their hand up. Could you please identify yourself?
Oh, it's Bridget Blanchard. I got kicked off for a little bit, but I was reading through, I think, the Neighborhood Connections pamphlet, and they also they're offering a bus service now. So maybe they would have backup bus drivers in the event that we need one.
Great. That's dynamite. Thank you.
I can respond to that.
Oh, Carolyn's going to respond.
I sit on the board of Neighborhood Connections, and they have one bus driver who you actually don't need a CDL to drive that bus, that van. They have one person who's going to work 2 days a week who is CDL approved, and they're going to have a volunteer 2 other days. So it's worth a question or an answer, getting an answer, Bridget, but I don't think that there's going to be a huge overlap. I'll also say that if you go drive by Floodbrook, you drive by Green Mountain, most all of these schools have signs out saying they need bus drivers. So it's a really tough thing, and as we know, transportation is not mandated in the state of Vermont. So, you know, I like to provide the service to make sure kids get to school, but it's a tough one right at the moment.
No, it's good to know. So
I'm hoping that Michael will proceed.
Yeah.
And I will help him in any way possible to get his bus driving license.
No, it's good. So between you and the question to West River and the question to Neighborhood Connections, and then, Michael, do you have your hand up?
I do. I have an old school solution, barring all the other things don't come out as fruitful. There used to be we used to have like phone trees back in the day where school would go out and everybody would call each other, the big long phone tree thing. Probably some of you remember those days. I'm just thinking sort of if maybe we foresee something like that come up in the future where we don't find ourselves with a bus driver, perhaps we could organize a couple of parents that could grab kids in particular areas of the town. We could just set up like a little mini route. Like I could grab, I can grab 2 kids. I can't grab any more. Well, 2 plus my 3. So, but I don't know. I don't know if that's a feasible solution, but it might be a simple, easy solution and help some of those folks out who wouldn't be available to drive their kids or because they got to go to work or whatever the thing is. But.
1 second. So Michael, if I understand you're talking about a phone tree for maybe just things that come up. We have had a phone tree in the past, I think for snow days, we used to have a phone tree. So that's an excellent idea regarding the bus, and that's something that we can talk to Mickey and Sarah about. I don't know, do you have a phone tree for snow days, that sort of? So that was something we used to do, but in this circumstance, that's a great idea. Russ, did you have a question for Michael?
I'm just going to make a statement. When individual parents are driving kids to school, they still must obey the state law with child seats and having them restricted. So if you've got young children, you need to have 5 seats in the car that are appropriate for their age and weight. So it can be, technically, it can be a problem.
I'm sorry, what, Abby? Was that Abby?
Of course, we have to see so we have lots of them.
I think that would just be part of the phone tree, swapping car seats. Bill?
Yeah, so back to the budget. It sounds very much like there's great energy to plan for a food program at a minimum for next year. So would it be the board's wishes for Laurie to include a food program in this budget in draft number 2?
Yes.
Okay, Laurie, you got that?
Food and admin.
Okay, and then Russ, you had mentioned.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that with Laurie, line item, I guess it's 31, it's debt service 5090 that's in the 2023 budget that you have submitted. That is being deleted because it's been paid off.
Exactly, Russ. Yeah, so we made the final payment this month, as a matter of fact, so.
Just wanted to confirm that that is out.
Okay.
That is out.
Michael, hold on. Erin Kehoe had a question, please.
Can we look at adding a possible foreign language and a reserve line for maintenance, deferred maintenance for the building?
So how does the board feel about adding a foreign language component?
I think it should be looked at.
I mean, we can certainly add it and look at it, yeah.
Okay, and in terms of are you talking like capital planning?
Yeah, like a
Right.
1% fund.
That always is constantly being fed
Yeah.
on a regular basis.
So when an emergency like a boiler,
Sure.
there would be some money in a reserve.
Yep.
Or a floor that is broken.
Very
that-
common.
Yeah, excellent idea. Put it into the operational budget as a fund transfer. And, the board will probably need to consider when it's time to go to town meeting about having an article that moves a certain amount of money every year into a sinking fund, as you're talking about, for building maintenance.
I think it would also be appropriate to consider a sinking fund for a bus replacement, and putting approximately 12 to 15% of the cost of a new bus in a bus replacement reserve fund. And the idea about having reserve funds is that it can be accumulated and not used to offset taxes in some future year. That if the fund is designated for a specific purpose, it does not go into the general account and be used to reduce the tax rate in subsequent years. So you could accumulate $50,000 or $60,000 in the reserve fund, and know that when you needed a bus, the funds were there to do it.
Karen, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and then the other one is looking forward 2 or 3 years. I know that the special education issue is going to bring added expense to many school districts, not necessarily next year and the year after, but in the third year, because we're using some CARES money to set up a reserve fund for special education. But at some point, the hammer's going to come down, and the districts are going to need to come up with significant funds for special education in 2025, 2026.
Yes.
And it's a matter of the earlier you start with a small allocation, the easier it is to meet the goal in 2024, 25, 26. And this was discussed at the meeting last Tuesday, the 3rd or the 4th of
Yes.
November.
Absolutely.
And I think it's something that we can use some of the fund balance, which is a $70,000 surplus, to kick it off. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the budget, but we need to allocate some funds for expenses we know we're going to be facing in 3 or 4 years.
That's a good point, Russ. And just to clarify, there is a bus replacement reserve fund currently. It has $5,000 in it. And the board used to put in an amount every year, as you are talking about. So that is established already. So that can be done. That actually, you could use fund balance right now to move into there too. So it's already established.
Thank you, Laurie. Go ahead.
Laurie, could you read back what you're going to be adding to the budget in draft number 2?
I'm so glad you asked, because I was going to clarify. So I know that I'm putting in a 0.5 administrative assistant. We feel 0.5 is adequate. We're going to investigate the food program, which I did have a follow-up question about. So there's the basic operating costs of a food program, and then there's probably going to be some capital that will have to be spent to maybe upgrade the area that you have right now as a kitchen area. There might need to be some capital put into that. Am I including both?
I would say yes.
Okay, so instead of using, instead of overspending the budget this year and putting in money to do that this year, we'll plan for it next year.
I think it would be prudent to consider using some of the fund balance to offset the capital investment in the equipment that would be needed to provide the food, but then the recurring annual expense for personnel and/or delivery of the food from Leland and Gray up here should be included in the budget as an operational item going forward.
Okay. And then it sounds like I'm also putting in some foreign language. And I guess I would ask if that looks like a half a day a week, a day a week. You know, we could probably work with Mickey on his recommendation for that. I'm sure scheduling is also part of it.
Yeah, I'd like to talk, because when we had the Chinese program, I'd like to talk to him. He should certainly weigh in on that. I think that's fair.
But I'll put a line item in for it then. Okay. So those are the things that I have going into the operational budget. I know we talked about a bus replacement reserve and other items, but these are the 3 items I have right now to put in this next round.
What about ongoing capital building?
Oh, to start a reserve fund. Yeah, I was thinking of fund balance for that too. But yes, a line item for ongoing maintenance into a capital fund. Yes.
Bridget, did you have a question?
I do. So it sounds like the food program that you're putting in the budget is kind of like an everything, you know, kind of biggest case scenario. If it comes back too expensive, do we have the like wiggle room to come up with other creative options for food? Like no point in kind of discussing it now until we really see the numbers and then kind of scale as we go. Okay.
So, Bill, do you want me to jump in, or I can't see you, so.
Yeah, jump on in.
Okay. So if you decide to do a food program, just as you had to, have a motion not to have a food program, there are certain guidelines that have to be followed. So the number that I'm going to come up with is basically, if you run a food program, this is what it's going to cost you, and it will meet the stringent compliance. I'm not sure that you could run a food program and come up with other options unless they met those same stringent rules.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
So to that point, and I get what you're talking about, it's like certain dietary needs and things like that. Is there a way to put in the budget, say we don't do a food program because it's too expensive, is there a way to put in the budget like a food budget? So maybe like a line item where the staff can purchase snacks, or they can have like produce in the building, but it's not considered a food program? Is there any wiggle room for something like that?
You can fund anything. We just have to check the rules of serving food on a regular basis in a school setting.
Right.
Can you do that?
Okay.
If you aren't part of a program.
Right, so if we opt out, say we opted out of the food program, but we
You
have a way to provide food as,
Sure.
you know.
I just have to check into the legality of it.
Yep.
But my suggestion would be we should ask Laurie to build a budget like you're having a program, and then bring it down from there.
So just to follow up on that, there may be some wiggle room around not accepting federal funds.
Right.
So you would not have any revenues to offset any expenses. Whereas when you're in the food program, then you have revenues that offset that. So that may be the wiggle room.
Right, that might be the clean way. We're not going to participate in the federal school lunch program, therefore we're not eligible for any grants or any reimbursement, but we have complete flexibility to do whatever we want.
Okay.
So Laurie, would your proposal include the reimbursements from the USDA?
Yes.
Okay. And that would be noted in the line item, that it's net expense as opposed to gross.
It'll be actually, typically a food program is run out of a different fund, but you could put you'll see a line item in revenue for it, yes.
Sure, Pat McLean.
Yeah, my question has to do with the amount allocated for teaching staff. If we add a 0.5 administrative assistant, what is the, I'm a little unclear about how much then is budgeted for teacher, paraprofessional, principal, and are we going to have more teaching time available than we do this year?
I'll take a stab, Laurie. So in this budget, you have essentially a half-time administrative assistant currently in there under line
51.
Should be about
2410.
2410. Okay. So that my thinking, and Laurie, correct me if I'm wrong, we just leave that there and then we take the teacher, which is currently at a 50 or 60 or 70% allocation. I don't know what we budgeted.
50%.
50%. We'd make that 100%. So right now you have 1.5 teachers budgeted, so that would go up to 2, and you'd leave the half-time administrative assistant. And then, so that's the money. And in terms of teaching time, the only teaching time you would gain would be whatever administrative duties were being done between 8 and 3.
Right, so what about the principal? I guess where's the principal budgeted here? Is it half time for principal, half time for teacher?
Yes, he's budgeted 50/50. Again, in that 2410, the administration line, 50% there, and then 50% in the direct instruction line under teachers. Typically, that's how you'd budget for a teaching principal.
Right, that's how you budget for a teaching principal, but in terms of time, if you came and sat and watched school all day, I think you'd have 95% as teaching during the day. So in terms of increasing teaching time, I think you're only increasing the reduction of whatever administrative assistant work would be done while the students are here.
So just to, again, clarify, right now, in the budget, there's a half-time administrative assistant, a 1.5 teacher, and 0.5 principal. And we're talking about having full-time administrative assistant, 1.5 teacher, 0.5 principal. Is that what we're talking about?
No. So in the budget right now, there's only one teacher.
Okay.
You have half teacher, half principal. Half teacher, half administrative assistant. I was just trying to clarify.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out what we're talking about, because I think this is really critical. We have enough teaching staff.
Sure.
So we're looking at going, that's what we have now, but it would then increase to
1.5 teaching. 1.5 teaching. So right now you have one teaching,
right.
0.5 principal.
So we're up to 1.5 teaching, 0.5 principal, and 0.5 administrative assistant?
Correct.
Okay.
Right, Laurie?
It was really hard to hear, so
right now, we have budgeted, right now, we have a 1.0 teacher, we have a 0.5 principal, and we have a 0.5 administrative assistant.
that is correct.
And we are talking about changing that to 1.5 teacher, keeping 0.5 principal, keeping 0.5 administrative assistant.
Hiring a 0.5 administrative assistant.
Right, but in the budget, it would reflect an increase from 1.0 teaching to 1.5 teaching.
Yes.
Yes,
exactly.
And my other question is, are we looking at adding a nurse half a day a week, perhaps?
That was definitely brought up, so that
I
was.
mean, I think it would be reasonable to have something like that.
Well, we were just talking about that. None of the schools except for Leland and Gray have a nurse. We were talking about
full-time.
Sorry, full-time.
I'm not talking full-time. I'm talking about 4 hours a week.
So do you want Laurie to put that in the budget?
Why don't we? We've been
So,
talking
sure,
about it.
Laurie, you want to put that in the budget too?
Okay, so then I'm going to put in a increase from a 0.01 to a 0.10 nurse.
And I think we also need to keep in mind, look at what the other schools are doing and the certification of their staff, which is something people were talking about, CPR certified, first aid certified. Russ, I'm sorry, does that answer your question, Pat?
No, I think we need to look at that as well. I think that.
No, she is. Laurie's gonna put it in.
No, I think it's good.
Yeah,
That's all
all right.
I wanted to know.
Thank you. I just wanted, because Bridget Blanchard's had her hand up for a while.
Oh, I think it was answered. Well, so I was on the supervisory website, and there was forms about renewing a continuation of free meals through 2021. And that was for fiscal year 22. And it would allow school children to be served free breakfast and lunch through the school year, but I couldn't really hear that well. But is it because we don't have like a up-to-date kitchen with commercial kitchen, and that's why we can't do that?
Yeah, you are not a part of the USDA federal food lunch program.
But every other school in the district is, aside from ours?
That is correct.
Okay, so why are we not part of that?
It has historically not been something that the Windham citizens have voted for.
Okay. Is that something we could maybe vote for?
We're adding it to your draft budget number 2 for FY23.
So that would be, so if we were able to get the funds through that, so it was like $20,000 a year, this would be a grant that we could apply for after we have it budgeted in?
Depends on what grants are available at the time. That is a grant that will run out at the end of this year.
Right.
Okay.
The reason that everybody is eating for free is the USDA extended the COVID rules basically through the end of this school year, but it won't. I wouldn't imagine that it will go beyond that.
Okay. All right. I guess we got to get our kitchen up to date so we can do all the fun things.
I think in the past, and I'm speaking from the
Yes.
past, when I was here, where there weren't enough parents at the time who were interested in that system. There are a lot of parents, quite frankly, who, weren't into the food that was being provided at the time. I believe it was through Cisco. Parents just wanted some, not all. We didn't have enough participation with that, so that's why we're discussing it now. Russ, you had a question?
Yeah. Laurie, at what point, when you have a half administrative assistant, do you incur a full year's health insurance premium of $35,000?
17 and a half hours is when health benefits kick in, but they're prorated based on the FTE. So many times the cost for somebody only working part-time is not really viable.
Okay. Is there another school that has a one-half administrator that we could get the other half of?
Administrative assistant?
Administrative assistant.
Not in the
District.
WSS.
Okay, I just thought if we could share responsibilities.
No.
Because I know the principal
Lovely.
in Chester is also a principal of another school over in
Right.
Cavendish, and they share expenses. So if we could do that, it would ameliorate the cost of adding health insurance. That's all.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Okay, Michael Pelton. Michael, are you still on? Or are you all set?
Sorry, we're good, thank you.
You're good, okay. Anything else for Laurie? For now, this is obviously an ongoing conversation, so these are all, oh, yep.
So So the next step is Laurie's going to present the revised budget in December, and then we like work off of that, and then January, and then it's voted on in March. That would be okay.
Exactly. Laurie, what is the date that a budget needs to be approved by the board?
So because the board meetings are, you may have to have an extra board meeting in early February to approve a budget, because you know, you have to have it before town meeting, or warned, what, 30 days before town meeting?
Within 30 to 40 days before town meeting.
Right. So you're probably, I mean, you won't make it to the February one to have an approved budget, so you'll have to either do it in early February or in the January, but regular meeting.
Excellent.
Great, thank you. Yes, and that's a really good point, because obviously in the past we've met the first, when did we meet? First Monday of the month, and now, so this is, yeah, so that's a great thing to keep in mind. Is there anything else for Laurie? I have one thing for Laurie, and this is really, really important, and Laurie, you better not go anywhere. So Laurie, and I had to get the official title from Bill, but I did see the video on Brattleboro Reformer, and I saw you, Laurie. Anyway, Laurie Garland was nominated for, she was a finalist for nonprofits in the Remarkable Woman Award from the Brattleboro, it was Remarkable Women Award through the Brattleboro Reformer. She was one of 3 people, I believe, specifically for nonprofit organizations. So, and I just think that speaks very highly to our supervisory union and the care that she's given to us these many, many years. So I hope everybody values that we have that kind of, yay. Wait.
And thank you very much. I was able to have my mom and my daughters there, so it was 3 generations of remarkable women.
Nice, very good. I just think it's really important that we understand that here, and from what I've heard from Rich Werner, the chair of the super board, we're really kind of leaders, believe it or not, in Vermont. Our supervisory union is doing really, really good things. So, and obviously it's even better with the participation. Okay, can Laurie, goodbye.
All right, I will see you next month with an updated budget. Take care, everybody.
All right, so now we're going to move on to policy review. Oh, no, sorry, intra-supervisory school choice discussion, of which I have a couple copies. So Bill, do you want to?
Sure. So this summer, the WCSU board tasked me with coming up with a draft system for intra-SU choice grades K through 8 based on public school choice. In Vermont, all students have public school choice in grades 9 through 12. No money changes hands. And districts get to decide how many students they will receive and how many students they will let go. And so I meet with the executive committee, which is the board chairs, every Thursday. And the board chairs very much wanted me to make sure that all the boards were able to be introduced to this in November and have another agenda item in December, so that their representatives could come to a meeting in January and say, yes, we want to do this, or no, we don't want to do this. And so I went last night to West River and introduced this, and I'm here tonight, and I'm at Marlboro on Thursday, and River Valleys did it on Monday as well. But essentially what it would work, looking specifically at Windham, is imagine that Windham has, just for easy math, has 20 students next year. The board, if the board agrees to participate, the board then gets to decide what is the minimum amount of students that would be able to participate in school choice, and this would only be in the WCSU. So you could only go to schools Marlboro, Jamaica, Townsend, Newbrook, Dover, Wardsboro. There is no transportation offered, but you could use any transportation systems that currently exist. So if you really wanted to go to Wardsboro and you knew where the Wardsboro bus was caught, a child could win that. So a board would decide, a Windham board would decide, if we have 20 students, what number of students will we allow to participate in this? So they might decide, because you're a small school, we're going to have 25%. We're going to allow 5 kids to go. And then you'd have a sign up, and if you had more than 5, you'd have to have a lottery. And if you have siblings, and the person that was picked was first as a sibling, well, then their sibling gets the trail, so that's going to be worth 2. And so you'd have to go through that process. And then Windham would decide how many people they are going to accept. And since Windham is small and has 2 teachers, they might say, we're willing to take 8 kids. But we're only going to take 4 in this class and 4 in this class. And then I would run the system. The kids would shift wherever they shifted. No money would change hands. The 20 kids that live in Windham that are part of the ADM would stay there. The 5 that go out would go to their school. The 8 that come in, or the 4 that come in, or the 6 that come in, the ADM would stay with those schools. And that would then become that child's school until they went, depending on their system. So if they were in River Valleys, that would be up through 6th grade. And if they were in Windham, it would be up through 6th grade. If they were in Marlboro, it could be up through 8th grade. So that is the concept. It is legal. I've run it through the AOE. I've run it through the attorney. It would just take a memorandum of the boards all agreeing to it that wanted to participate. That's kind of the idea. And so I'm to bring this to the board in November and to make sure that there's an agenda item in December where there's discussion. But I think it'd probably be valuable if anybody here had an opinion on it so that the board could at least understand where people might be coming.
So it doesn't help or hurt us if we send too many kids or take too many kids in?
That's why I have a min and a max. So
Okay.
the money doesn't change hands. It's simply the amount of kids in and out.
Okay.
Crystal?
So this board can say, you know what, we're gonna allow 5 kids to leave the school, because when I read it today, it said you can do a minimum of 5% or 10%.
That's just an
and
example.
It's just an example.
That's just an example.
Okay.
It depends on
For
the
us,
system.
that's like
Well, exactly.
one
Right.
kid. and
But
I'm like,
you're in River Valleys and you got 160, 5 and 10 makes sense. You know, so the board gets to pick the percentage, depending on their.
So I attend the other board
Yeah.
meeting because Kylie's down there. So West River, I mean, they're technically already doing that, correct?
They're doing it within their district.
So.
And River Valleys is doing it within their district.
Yeah.
But if a kid from Dover wanted to come to Windham, that's not possible. Unless you have an agreement like this.
Okay. Got it.
I don't see anybody on Zoom. Pat, McLean?
No. So let's say Windham had 5 children to go out. They could potentially take more than 5 children in? They could take 8 children?
It would be up to
But
the board.
there's no advantage to taking more kids. There's no, money is changing hands.
That is correct. There's no advantage to, or disadvantage. It could be an advantage because you want more kids. It could be a disadvantage because, like, other districts are going to have more difficult choices because they have larger populations. So Townsend might have 2nd and 4th grade, they're not taking anybody. And that'll be up to them because they'll have decided, we only want 20 kids in a class. We got 17 right now. This decision's being made in April. We got to leave 15% open for kids that move in or want to do that.
Bridget?
So from a budget perspective, if we're sending and receiving, it's still like, say we're like, okay, 4 kids can go, we'll take 8. We don't know that 8 are actually gonna come in. Or we might get all 8 that, well, we're so small that probably wouldn't affect our day-to-day cost.
Well, that's where you'd ask Mickey, right? What would make sense?
Okay.
You know, we will let 4 out and we'll let 4 in. We'll just make it an even swap. Maybe 4 will go out and 2 will come in.
Okay.
Maybe 1 will go out and 4 will come in. But you have to be comfortable with those ranges.
Okay.
But as a clarification point, adopting this has no impact on the school budget
Right.
whatsoever. Average daily membership and equalized pupil are not affected by any decision that's made by considering this draft. So there's no economic loss or gain to Windham from adopting this thing. It just fills the need that if a child that lives on the town line of Jamaica and Windham wants to go to the school down in Townsend, they can do it. That's it. There's no money change.
I have another follow-up question to that. So when you're looking at your ADM, it's based on your enrollment, but let's say, hypothetically speaking, 1 year, 3 kids go. Those 3 kids are forever ours?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as
We just track them in the reporting system.
I'm sorry, Michael Pelton's been waiting.
Yep.
I just wanted to ask about the.
Can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Or is that a number that we can change year to year?
It would be an initial agreement that would come up with an annual renewal. So if the agreement allowed for that annual change, I would think that that would probably be a smart thing because populations change.
Well, I'm all for it. As long as we have the ability to change our numbers based on what our population looks like year to year, then it would be silly for us not to participate.
Yep, that's why I asked Bill to bring it here. I'm going to take credit for that. I'm sorry, go ahead, Carolyn.
I think another real positive would be for kids in West Windham who, right now have to go to Jamaica. And it makes so much more sense. If they wanted to come to Windham, they could.
Yeah, it's just, it's a decision that should be out there for people. So I'm excited about it. Is there anybody else? Go ahead, Crystal.
I just want to say that I am glad this was brought to light because for me, I want all 3 of my kids in the same area. And it's a struggle because when my kids play in the backyard, they are playing in the West River District. So thank you for.
I don't take any credit. The chair of the Windham Central Supervisory Union really believes in creating as much opportunity for the district as possible.
Bridget.
What's the likeliness you think this will pass? Like, what are you hearing about it?
I'm positive that River Valley, where the chair from the WCSU, they're going to be for it.
Okay.
I think Marlboro believes that anybody who wants to drive out to Marlboro would really want to be in Marlboro. And so that's exciting that somebody wants to come to our school.
Yeah.
So I think they'll be for it.
Okay.
But I won't know. The idea is in January, people come very informed and ready to vote.
Michael Pelton, if you could hold on 1 second, please. Erin Kehoe had a question. Erin, your hand's up.
So Bill, this would be, if it was be approved in December, this would be initialized for next school year.
That is the charge that I was given, is to make sure that I created a timeline that it could happen for FY23.
And then applications in April and decisions in May.
Right, because in River Valleys and in West River, they do district choice in March. And so I need to know what those numbers look like so that we can lock down what, they can do the percentages, but I need to know the classroom size.
Okay. Well, thank you.
No, again, if you see Rich Werner, you can thank him.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Michael, did you have a question or a comment?
No, we're all set, thank you.
Anybody else on Intra-SU choice? Okay, then we're going to have added to the agenda for the December meeting. Okay, now on to policy review and warning.
All right, so I'm going to keep this real brief. These are required policies that have been recently updated by the Vermont School Boards Association and have been vetted by the Vermont School Boards Association attorney. I recommend that you adopt or that you warn all of these policies and don't make any substantial changes.
Okay, can we do,
You can do them as a group.
Great.
all right, I would move that we warn C1,
Do you want to name them, Carolyn, as you go? Just
student records, C2, student drugs and alcohol, C3, transportation, C6, home study students, C8, people privacy, C9, nutrition and wellness, and C10, prevention of harassment, hazing, and bullying policy.
Can I get a second on that?
You just skip code 9?
No, just
nope.
C9.
Oh, I can see it,
C9.
C9, okay.
C9.
And the last one was,
Prevention of C10, prevention of harassment, hazing, and bullying policy, of which I do have a couple copies if anybody wants to see those bullying policies.
So these will be
For
warned.
students or our board?
Sorry.
This is for students.
It's for students. I was like,
Is there one for boys?
All right, so
Would it be possible to talk about home study?
So we're warning them, and they would be adopted next month. Would it be appropriate to answer questions now, Bill?
so, yeah, it does make a difference. You made a motion to warn,
Mm-hmm.
right? So,
Yep, I'll second it.
second,
and
Did you second it?
then you're in transportation.
Okay.
I seconded it.
Okay, Russ is seconding it. Any discussion?
So Michael has a
You
question
need to
about home
post it
study?
in Public place.
That's what Carolyn's talking about.
Oh, you're going to
warning
post
it.
these?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't know how they'll all fit, but I'll combine them and do them all in one place.
Just put them right up there.
Yeah.
Michael, did you have a question about the policies?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about home study if it was possible. I don't know if that's the appropriate time is now or if we need to talk about it at a different time.
Why don't you let the board finish the warning business, and then you go ahead and ask Michael. And if I can answer it, I'll answer it now.
So you need to
So-
proceed with the vote?
Yes.
Yeah.
So where are we
All
at?
right, so,
Warn?
yep, seconded.
Warren seconded.
Yep, we've had some, yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that motion passes, so you're gonna address the home study?
Go ahead, Michael.
All right, so short story long, I believe that it is our responsibility as a town to really ensure that our kids collectively in the town are educated to the fullest. That being said, some folks find it incompatible to send their kids to our public school. That's why we're looking at choice, for instance. But I also believe that home study is a pretty important thing, and we as a town should look at ways to support that. I'm not saying that we need to fully fund a parent's ability to provide that education, but some support, I think it would be appropriate. And I don't know if it would be possible for us meaning the board, to look at funding a small portion of their expenditure for home study students. The letter that I sent, or the email that I sent to the board, was sort of a proposal. My proposal basically is a sum of $400 per student per year, with an additional $100 reserved for the assessments that the children need to take at the end of the year. It's either an assessment or an evaluation by a certified teacher, and that can cost some money. So it'd be nice for us to sort of plan ahead, help them through that process, I believe. And then I believe that there's some room in there, if we are willing as a community to support them, that we can whether we look at it in terms of like, they need to provide us receipts, or we require that they teach whatever, history of the town, something like that, to make sure that we're still getting some value out of it, to ensure that we're getting your value out of it. I just wanted to bring that up as a discussion piece. I don't know what like I said, I don't know what the state funding thing looks like. So that's my question.
So I can speak to the state funding. So a student who is enrolled in home study is not part of ADM for a school. And it would be within a town's power to provide resources to students that lived in the town that were not registered at the school. So you could provide what you have explained, Michael, but the students could not be counted as students that are enrolled. So it would simply be the generosity or the responsibility or the value of the community that they wanted to provide those funds.
Yep, that was my expectation, that it wouldn't count towards our ADM, but I think that would be, personally, I believe that would be a worthy investment for us as a town and community to invest in their education.
Michael, if I can, I'll read you the policy. Participation of home study students. It is the policy of the Windham School District to comply with the requirements of Act 119 of 1998 by allowing home study students to participate in courses, programs, activities, and services and use school educational materials and equipment. The superintendent will develop administrative procedures that comply with rules by the Vermont State Board of Education as is necessary to implement this policy. So I have your email, and if that's something we can continue the discussion for the December meeting, that's just going to take some participation by the town citizens, how we want to see that play out.
Very good. I'd like us to keep this in the conversations in the future. I think it's pretty important. And if we look at it in the small picture currently, we have two that I know of anyway, one of which is participating in secondary education, so it probably wouldn't even affect this. Well, actually, it should probably affect this budget, but it could also revolutionize the way our town is perceived and change the way people think about Windham.
Great, thank you. I know in the past we've had, and even now we have some home school students who participated in our sports programs when we had soccer here, in some other programs at the school. So that's great. Is there anybody else that wanted to discuss the policies or anything else? Kind of have that all, we'll warn that and we'll bring it up at the next meeting. Okay. Next, other business was, do we want to talk more about the lunch program? We said that we would discuss, but we kind of discussed it. Go ahead.
Not the lunch program.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many kids are doing the GIST program. I am not sending Jackson and Oliver this year because we've been told we don't have access to the base lodge. And it's just too much to not have a place for little kids to get warm. So can the school look into maybe the fire department doing an ice rink? I'm not sure like where we're at, or are Mickey and Sarah still on GIST days here all day?
So
Yeah,
I
that's a
can
good question.
I actually just talked to Mickey about this today. So I think that what we're looking at is actually an idea Michael had, looking for parent volunteers. We are going to look at doing a little snow program here so the kids that aren't doing it don't lose out. Alexis is getting a price on sleds, and we're gonna purchase some sleds. He's gonna be here. I said I'd come. I think we're both background checked and fingerprinted, so we're safe chaperones to be here. And we were gonna put the dates out if anyone else is available too. And probably gonna do. Mickey's looking at how many snowshoes he has. We have plenty of cross-country skis, and so we're thinking of just doing like 2 hours out in the snow. So I believe they're still here, whether they can use that time for, you know, other administrative work or not, but we are looking at doing some sort of parent volunteer school program so that, because based on other families, I think it's probably gonna be about half the kids are participating, half the kids will be here, so we'll do something fun with them.
Well, I just asked because in the past it was if you didn't participate in JIS, you had to pick your kids up. So, and that's kind of hard for working parents.
Yeah, well, in the past we had, if you didn't go to the mountains, the kids went cross-country skiing with Sally. I wonder if she'd be interested in continuing that. I'd be happy to show up.
Yeah, I think she's looking to participate as well, I believe, in my conversations with her. So fear not, we will be doing something as, well, there'll be something going on during GIF regardless. We'll get something done.
Great, thank you.
Hopefully next year will be normal.
Yeah, great, okay. I can't even read my notes anymore, my whole agenda here. Anything else?
Boiler.
Is it
Propane boiler.
33.2 or 32.3?
33.2.
So you guys have 73,000 in your fund balance. This is the most up-to-date quote. I think this is, what's that email from, yesterday?
I just got it 45 minutes ago before I came to this meeting.
On the cover.
Oh, the 8th.
On the 8th, okay.
Yep.
You know, it's 30,000 out of 72,000. It's a boiler.
Proposal may be withdrawn by us if not accepted within 15 days. Russ, you had something?
Yeah, has an RFP been put out? Because there are 5 propane dealers in the area that are capable of doing an RFP. Coda and Coda, Dead River, Blue Flame, and Door all have propane service and delivery. And I would think that if Greg can put together a RFP with the specifications and allow for site visitations for their technicians to evaluate the plumbing and piping that might be needed as specified in the quote, I think we might get a better price. And for something with this amount of money and the size of the project, I think you would have at least 3 of those dealers here tomorrow morning at 7:30 if you asked them.
Did you mention Irving?
Well, Irving can do it. You know, they're, you know, I didn't put them down, but they're another good company.
I couldn't remember if you said it.
No, I didn't. It's Coda and Coda, Dead River, Blue Flame, Door, which is over in Dorset, and then Irving. Irving comes out of New Hampshire, but I think you got five options. You know, and I think for the size of the project, you know, you're going to get several bids. You just need to specify the BTUs and let the technicians come and look at the piping that has to be modified and done. And whichever company gets the bid gets the propane tank. Because the propane companies provide the tank and they provide the tubing and everything else up to the building. And if you're looking at the 20,000 quote that he said on line 4 here, that probably would be closer to 20K, and you look at the 50,000 we were going to spend on the tank, that's 70. So by even 33 standards, we're saving money.
I can, it's the will of the board. You guys want me to direct
an RFP is not difficult to put together.
That's a great idea, Russ. I really like that. And I believe it's also a great opportunity for some town collaboration, because doesn't the town use that for the town garage use that? So maybe we could even get more of a town discount if they're getting more business from us. Just a thought.
Coda and Coda, I think, supplies the diesel fuel for the town. Irving, I don't know if they supply the propane. It's not an Irving tank out there. I don't know who does the propane here in town. But I think an RFP is in line.
sorry, Bridget Blanchard.
Oh, I just wondered, do we have like an emergency, like if a power outage happens, do we have like a center? Is it the community house where people will go for like power outages and warming shelters and that kind of thing?
Town clerk's office, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the town office provides it, and there's a generator between the town office and the school that services both buildings, but there's no generator at the meeting house.
We have an emergency management team, is my understanding.
Is Rick Weitzel still the emergency management?
Or that I can't say.
Well, I was just thinking, would any funds be available to, if the town office isn't really big enough, would they I don't know if that would even be a thing, if they consider the school being a bigger area, maybe they could get some type of kickbacks for the like the furnace and that kind of thing.
That's a really good point. I don't know who are you saying, Rick Weitzel? Is he?
Yes, way to go, Bridget. Love it.
Rick used to do it. Yeah, that's a great idea, Bridget.
Okay, so let us find out who the emergency management team is.
You know, maybe Laura will know. I'll give her a call tomorrow.
Okay, so Carolyn's gonna work on that, Bridget. Thank you.
Yep.
So you guys don't need to make a motion, but the direction is for the Director of Operations to create an RFP based on the specifications for the boiler. Do you guys just entrust him to take care of it, or do you guys want to open up the bids yourselves at the December meeting?
It's always fun to do bid opening, you know.
Okay.
You know, it's fun to do it. Just as long as no one's.
What is the date of your meeting in December?
Yeah, because this option's up in
December 21st.
Okay. All right.
Oof, really? Oh, that's terrible.
I know.
Okay, December 21st. I'll talk to Mr. Gregg. Bid opening.
Okay.
Well,
Great.
can I modify that? Since it is the 21st, and I think that you could probably get the bids here within 2 weeks, so can we, let's have Greg do the opening so he can advise us, so we'd have a discussion available at our meeting.
So you want him to do the opening?
Yeah, even though it's fun to open
And
bids.
then bring it with the recommendation.
With the recommendation.
Okay, got it.
Russ, do you think we should have a meeting before the 21st?
Well, we can have a telephone conference between the three of us, and if the bids, it's a business decision. It's, you know, the specs are the specs. They quote on the specs, and that's what they have to do. I mean, it's a business decision.
I think we should have a public open meeting to do that.
I mean, to open the bids.
Yeah.
To,
as quick as it
to
is.
discuss that.
So let me get this clear. The three of you want to be present for the opening of the bids,
Right.
and you want to do it not on the 21st, but prior to the 21st.
I think because time is of the essence here. I don't know how much life that boiler's got.
All right, so why don't you give me this? I understand that you want them to happen prior to that. Let me talk to Greg, find out what he believes is an appropriate timeline to get them back. It could be something as simple as December 14th at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's, you know, a 20-minute meeting for the bid opening. But let me talk with him. I understand the process. And then on the 21st, you guys would just announce this is the person you would pick.
Another question I have is, why is the fan running on the weekends in the building? I've been going by here on Saturdays and Sunday, and the building fan is going like crazy. And I'm sure the heat is on. Isn't there some way to time that thing so it comes on at 7:30 in the morning?
I can talk, oh, yeah, that might be.
Remember?
I'll ask Greg.
I mean, I've gone by a number of times on the weekend, and you hear the thing, it sounds like a jet engine up there.
Yeah.
I do know Mr. PJ said today that the boiler's been running
Constant.
like a top.
Yeah.
No, it's been running really well.
Running well.
Yeah. And I can ask Cord too, because he's been the one working on that, so.
Okay, but I'll be honest.
Okay, great. Is there anything else?
So we're going to tentatively plan for a meeting on December 14th.
Yes, and we'll put that out there, yeah, through Ellen. So unless there's any other business, we can move on to public comment. If there's anybody that wants to share anything else? No? Okay. If not, then
Would there be a way to discuss a food program for the rest of this year, for the rest of the school year?
we can discuss whatever you want. Yeah, I don't know if there's any discussion at the parent group, Bridget, or?
We haven't gotten to that.
Okay.
So one of the things I would like to know is how many parents would like to participate?
That's a good question.
And, so how many kids, some of the logistics, how would it be delivered? What would the expectations be around that? And yes, the cost, but I think I'd just like to have some of these questions answered. So, and maybe Nikki could ask the parents how many folks would like to participate. Because I've heard mixed, some people want it, some people don't. Their kids are picky eaters, they probably wouldn't take advantage of it. So I'd just like to know some of those details.
I think at the beginning of the school year, Sarah sent out a survey, didn't she?
We can ask, yeah.
I feel like there was a question posed at early.
Oh, wow.
Somebody wants meals.
With my experience at Townsend, with Nora there for 2 years, and the school lunch program there was wonderful. The meal plan was great. The kids had access to foods that they would normally not eat, which expanded their palates. For kids at such a young age to have a different array of foods is definitely a lot healthier for them growing up. And especially, this is the generation of kids that are actually going to eat the healthiest, where the previous generation is the most processed foods. And that is what a lot of home-packed lunches are. So I'm not saying everybody, but you see a majority. I take my daughter into the supermarket. She's like, everybody has a Lunchable. Why can't I get a Lunchable? You're not eating a Lunchable. I do not want you to have the sodium that's in a Lunchable. And then that also teaches them about, not only with just eating, but then it turns into a compost program, which with the state you have to compost. So with that, the kids are learning that to eat their food, to compost their food. So it's not just about food being always offered. It's actually about learning nutrition, eating correctly, and what to do for the environment afterwards. So I think coming from a food and beverage director for 23 years that understands what a commercial kitchen should be, HACCP laws, rules, cooking temperatures and all of that. Things like that should be talked about for the growth of our children in their minds and in their bellies.
Yes. Aaron, you are preaching to the choir.
So for us not to try to even incorporate saying, if a parent or a school volunteer to even order lunches to pick up from Leland and Gray, and even a breakfast program to be picked up at the same time lunches are to be brought for the next day. Yes, Mr. PJ has always tried to cook, and done here for breakfast programs, but again, it's not HACCP certified. So that becomes a problem. So, he does not have the acquired licenses to even technically cook an egg sandwich for any of these children here.
Right.
And even heating up food here, technically I don't think that's allowed because they don't know their internal temperatures to be held at 165 for 15 seconds. So those are all problems I see, with not offering lunch or food of some sort.
So I totally agree with you. And as somebody who fights every year for more money for Farmer School in Montpelier, I'm totally on board. I think Farm to School and all the school lunch programs are fantastic. They have incredible programs that expose kids to foods that they might not necessarily try through food tastings, and they make up their own recipes and stuff like that. All I'm saying is I'd like to know how many parents would like to participate, and what are some of the details around that? And I think those are just simple questions that can be answered
I think, yeah.
by Bill.
By Bill, or you would need to ask Mickey.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I can get you the cost of, bringing stuff up, but I can get.
And we've talked in the past about perhaps the bus driver, so we have had these conversations. So that's great. So by the December meeting then, that will also be added to the agenda where we've gotten so far on the lunch program, maybe a better number of how many parents want to participate and want to participate consistently so that we really have that nailed down.
Because I think Townsend, even during the pandemic when they were offering the free lunches to the students and we went down and we had to fill out the survey, so they knew how many to prepare, and that was every week. Mm-hmm. So it was a weekly notice, so, and that, I don't see why that could not be implemented on the same basis on a weekly. And you get the menu ahead of time, this is the menu, this is what you're getting, do you want it? And this is what it would cost.
I'm sorry, Michael, Russ is up and then you.
I just wanted to make
Thank you, it's actually I.
Sorry, Abby.
Just wanted to make an observation that there is some surplus in the budget. And part of the food program is the physical equipment to keep it cold and keep it warm, to store it or whatever. And there's no reason why we couldn't consider a two-step approach, is to take some of the surplus funds that we have from previous budgets and make physical improvements to the kitchen area here, so that interim this school year, whether it's January, February, whatever it is, once the improvements have been made, we can include a food program. But it's difficult to include the food program if we don't have the proper equipment to store it before it gets served or eaten. So it's something that we can consider of allocating 15,000 or 18,000, whatever it is. Bill made up a list of what was needed and put it together so that it's available here, because we're not going to close the school year on June 30th and on July 1st have a commercial kitchens in here.
No,
So you need to use some of this money in this interim time period to create the environment for the food program. And we hear your request, we have a possible solution, it's just a matter of putting it together and getting some numbers.
Simple as, like I said, yes, the prepare down there, pick up, hot box, cold, proper temperatures for a minimum of 2 to 4 hours, for a maximum of 2 to 4 hours, depending on what that is, an internal temperature of 165. So,
and is it something that people could be flexible, where we, say we were able to start this at 2 days a week or 3 days a week? Is it something that we can slowly just try and move into and see how it plays out? I'm hoping that people can be, if we want to do it, I just think we need to go into it and really see how it's going to pan out for everybody.
I think that's a great idea to start slow.
Thank you.
I can go after Michael.
Oh, sorry, Michael, I'm sorry.
I can go after that.
What time is it?
Thank you. So, So I just wanted to kind of throw out there, one of the ideas that I and Michael have had has been working with the town and upgrading the meeting house kitchen. And if we could get a commercial grade kitchen in there, there's a lot of benefit to the town and things that we can do in many aspects. One would be to potentially work on how we could work the school program with food. So that's just something that's in the, we're thinking about and working on, and may or may not work out in this budget, but it's in the pipeline, I guess, to have for conversations. So just to throw that out there, that could be something down the road that has an easier setup to convert and upgrade. So thanks.
Thank you for mentioning that. And I did read that in Michael's, in his email. You had a comment about the meeting house.
Yeah, it's not a commercial kitchen, and it would need a lot of work to do so. But yeah, I think everybody thinking about this is a really positive thing.
Great. Russ?
Just a little information about the meeting house. When I was on the committee, we looked at upgrading the kitchen, and when the fire inspector came, he said if you have a deep fat fryer or you're frying things on those electric stoves, you need an Ansel system and a hood. And an Ansel system and a hood for the meeting house is going to run $55,000 or $60,000 just to get the air moving above the cooking area. And they already have that kind of a system at the school down below, so trying to improve the meeting house kitchen to meet the standards to provide food here is, obscenely expensive.
Well, as though I do appreciate your view, I'm optimistic and I love a challenge. So we'll see what happens.
So just to clarify, then I'm going to talk to, I see you, David, I'm going to talk to Mr. PJ and Sarah about a survey. You think that maybe there's a survey out, and whether there was or not, we'll get another one out.
And I'll talk to Greg about some cost options.
Okay, great. David.
I have your answer for that. Sarah did send out an email on August 19th about people who would participate in the school program.
Thank you.
I'm not sure who responded to it. I do know that she sent that out. Also about the meeting house kitchen, if Abby's up for challenges, maybe she could look into possible grants for such things like that could maybe be used for upgrading that kitchen, because it could benefit more than just the school. It could benefit, communities and possible monetary coming into the Windham because of rental. You can rent it out to small companies that would want to use it for packaging of their own food goods and whatnot. So it could be a benefit to checking that out more than just the school.
Great. Thank you, David. So these are all some really positive things happening. Unless there's anything else.
I just had one last thought on this. So talking about, I mentioned like putting extra funds into equipment and things like that, and it's obviously a big process. Is there something that we could brainstorm, roll around, like soft rollout of maybe not a full food program, but I've said it a few times, can we do like a small food budget? Like we have to pack snacks, so maybe we're not doing a breakfast and lunch program right away, but can we give Mr. PJ and Sarah a budget to buy like maybe some like cereal or crackers and something that's like dry foods that they can once a month buy? Or can we talk to a farm stand or someone locally and just get some produce here that's not a full-blown, and so there's bananas and apples, and at the end of the, what was that?
I don't know if you could go, because it's a school program, I don't know if you could go through a farm stand.
Oh, well, that's a good point. But if we're not doing an official food program, could we just get mini oranges and apples and bananas so if kids get off the bus and they're hungry, or if they don't have a snack that maybe something, like I said, that's a little bit more creative, that's not gonna blow the budget this year.
That's a good idea. Maybe that's something that, if Bill or Mickey or you guys, maybe that you could order through, since there's not a supplier here through the district, to get a discounted price on the wholesale supply.
And I know JoJo has donated apples and pears.
I was going to say, last couple of years, I thought we had donations of food.
Yeah. My grandchildren and I help on JoJo unload during the summer.
That comes from a certified supplier.
Are you telling me that?
I am, man. I'm going to get someone else to be on the computer next time.
Sorry. Crystal, did you have something?
No.
Okay.
It can wait.
Okay, these are all great.
And let you go.
The conversation's going to continue in December. Are we good? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to adjourn at 8:34. Thank you, everybody.